Hey everyone, what's going on? If you're new to the channel, please check out some links in the description, and it should help you understand a little bit better of what I'm going to talk about in this video. But you have to understand that the world is scripted, and there is a numerical code behind everything that we see. And to understand this, there's a practice called gematria or gematria, which is the practice of coding numbers into words and phrases. And I have countless videos of showing how this is done every single day in the media, and even in my own life, this stuff happens. And it stems back to what is called Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism that has a belief that God created the world by merging the letter with the number with the word. And, there's people in this world who are using this knowledge to essentially play God over the rest of the world. But let's get into this. So, if you've been following what I've been saying, the country France is super important to this year because this year on 9/22, it was the 227th anniversary of the French Republic. And the number 227 is really important because if you write out French Revolution, it equals 227. And if you write out French monarchy that got overthrown during the French Revolution, that also equals 227. And the French Revolution began by an assembly of the Estates General that equals 227, and Napoleon was born on the 227th day of the year. I also documented that in 2016, on July 14th, we got a Nice, France van attack, and that was on the 227th anniversary of the storming of the Bastille. So I've really been watching this with France this year, this number 227, and I noticed that this year, the 227th day of the 227th year of the French Republic just so happens to be the date of 5/6. And this is a very interesting number considering that if you write out Paris, France equals 56, and recall the ISIS terrorist attack in 2015, ISIS equals 56. What I pointed out back then too was that 2015 ISIS attack, it was synced up to Pope Francis visiting the United States with his trip. He arrived in America on the date of 9/22, which is the anniversary of the French Republic. And what's so interesting about this is notice that ISIS also equals 52, and the word Pope equals 52 and also 56. That ISIS attack happened 52 days later after on the 52nd day of the French Republic, which is the same day that Pope Francis arrived in the United States. Then the next day he went and met the president. President equals 52, and White House equals 52, and government equals 52. And what else was interesting about that is the 52nd prime number is 239, and that year was the 239th year of the United States, also the 239th year of the Illuminati. And the big day that Pope Francis went to the White House and whatnot was the date of 9/23, and he arrived at 9/23 in the morning, and he arrived in America on his 923rd day as being the Pope, and a bunch of other stuff. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's these Francis Bacon ciphers as well, where capital letters are important. And if you write out Illuminati, Illuminati just so happens to equal 239 in these ciphers. And the Illuminati has the ties to the French Revolution and so on, right? And Pope Francis is a Jesuit, which is called the Society of Jesus. And the Society of Jesus was founded in Paris, France. Notice how Society of Jesus equals 56. And the creator of the Bavarian Illuminati was Adam Weishaupt, who was also a Jesuit. He was a member of the Society of Jesus, right? But notice how it equals 239 as well. Also, look at what Paris, France equals in these ciphers. Paris, France equals 239. And what's so interesting is the date of May 6th, which can be written as 5/6. May 6th just so happens to be the day that leaves 239 days in the year. And If you type out Pope Francis in these ciphers, these Francis Bacon ciphers, think about it. Francis Bacon ciphers. Look at Pope Francis equals 227, right? The word Pope is 56. The date of 5-6 seems to be a very important number synced up to a lot of what's going on. And we also have the coronavirus that is going on right now, right? The coronavirus that's really, really popular, causing this, the world to just go batshit crazy. Like, it's just ridiculous. But notice how coronavirus also equals 56. And, the big joke with it is toilet paper. Toilet paper equals 56. Just yesterday, we got this big story about the California governor, Gavin Newsom, and how he ordered the lockdown of the 40 million California residents, right? But he's the 40th governor, 40 million. Notice in the sub-headline, though, it says that they're projecting 56% will be infected with the coronavirus at 8 weeks. 56%? Seems like a pretty odd number, doesn't it? Well, think about it. Coronavirus 56, toilet paper 56. Oddly enough, this guy's name, Gavin Newsom, equals 56. And, California is 52, that other number that's important to France and so on, but I'm going to skip over that. Just wanted to make a point that they're doing this like crazy. And a lot of people don't know that there was the Event 201 with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation back on October 18th. And in this event, it's called Event 201. And what they did in this event was they had talked about a coronavirus that would kill 65 million people. And 56 days later is when they said that patient 0 happened, right? Originally, they said that patient 0 from the coronavirus was on 12/12, right? So that was 56 days after Bill and Melinda Gates had this Event 201 that was about a coronavirus that would kill 65 million people. Think about 65, too, being the reflection of 56. But anyway, if you write out Event 201 as words, we'll put it in this one here. Event 2, just like how you'd say it, 201. Notice how that also equals 56, and then this 52 number synced up to Paris, France. And we also had that whistleblower doctor from China. His name was like Lin, I can't remember, Ling Weiyang or something like that. It was Len Weiyang, right? 52, 56. Also on the date of 2/25, which is the 56th day of the year, we had the WHO that said we should get ready for a pandemic in the United States over coronavirus, right? Think about it, the 56th day of the year. We also had the death of Kobe Bryant, which is interesting. Kobe Bryant, and they buried him in Corona Del Mar. If you go back and watch all of my videos from last summer, I was talking about how the NBA was super synced up to China, and there was a big importance to China and the Houston Rockets. And just interesting, then Kobe Bryant dies in a helicopter, and it was synced up to Kobe Bryant turning 41 years old, and Kobe Bryant equals 41 and died on his 157th day of being 41 years old. And Los Angeles Lakers equal 58. The National Basketball Association equals 113. Michael Jordan equals 113, and so on, right? Tons more. The helicopter crashed after 41 minutes and whatever. But Kobe was buried in Corona Del Mar. And then we get the coronavirus that's really, really popular. And the reason that I'm bringing all of this up is because the NBA then, they suspended their season after Rudy Gobert got the coronavirus, the guy from the Utah Jazz. But look at Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert just so happens to be a French basketball player. What are the odds of that? The first NBA player to get the coronavirus is the guy from France, of all places. And remember, Kobe grew up in Italy, where the Pope is from. And Italy right now is like the biggest place where coronavirus is going crazy and so on. Of course, too, the final team that Kobe Bryant ever played in the NBA was, his final game was against the Utah Jazz, where this guy plays from, and so on. And I'm going to talk about this in a minute because we have this story of the Utah earthquake that damaged the Angel Moroni's trumpet. The trumpet fell out of the statue of the Angel Moroni. And if you go back to my Paris, France attack videos, I have a whole bunch of videos where I talk about why the Mormon Church is important to the Paris attacks. It's also important to Pope Francis's visit to the United States, and a number of other things. That's why Dwayne Wade's son, who was named Zion, now wants to be a girl named Zaya, because it has a lot to do with Zion. And last year on August 10th, it was the beginning of what is called Tisha B'Av, which is the Jewish Remembrance Day of the destruction of the two temples that happened throughout history. And they both happened on the 9th day of the 11th month of the Jewish civil calendar. And in Jewish gematria, if you write out Tisha B'Av, it equals 911. And think about the twin towers that fell, right? The two towers that fell on 9/11. If you write out Al-Qaeda terrorist attack in Jewish gematria, it equals 911. And think about how they've also been comparing coronavirus to 9/11 recently, right? So there's something important to this. And August 10th, though, was when Tisha B'Av began last year. We were following this day like crazy. That also just so happened to be the 227th anniversary of the fall of the French monarchy. Anyway, I'm bringing all this up because Kobe Bryant really is important to this. So Kobe Bryant's birthday was August 23rd. And if you go to the day that the NBA canceled its season or suspended its season, which is also Anthony Davis's birthday, and Anthony Davis came from the New Orleans Pelicans, and it was synced up to Zion Williamson being won by the New Orleans Pelicans in the draft lottery on the May 14th, which is the anniversary of Israel declaring its independence. Think about Zion, which is also considered to be Israel, Zion Williamson. Think about how the Pelicans, New Orleans, is really important to France. But notice that the NBA suspended its season 201 days after Kobe Bryant's 41st birthday. Think about Bill Gates' Event 201. Now they're canceling this 201 days after Kobe Bryant's birthday. It's also interesting, too, in regards to South Park, that I'll leave, like I said, I'll leave videos in the description, but back in October, I made a video talking about how South Park had an episode called Mexican Joker, and it was just before the Joker movie came out, and then it was like a week before the Joker movie came out, then like 2 days before the Joker movie came out on October 4th, South Park had that episode called Banned in China, and they even had James Harden on the airplane and so on, and it was synced up to a bunch of things, Batman and whatever. But I'm just telling you, South Park is important to this. That next episode, after they had the controversy with China, they had an episode called Shots. And Cartman turned into a pig because he didn't want to get his vaccines, right? And just think about that. Think about, they built up in the conspiracy movement how vaccines are terrible and vaccines cause autism. And I mean, who knows? Maybe they do. But they've really just built up this group of people who will not get vaccines and everything else. And then just think about what's going to happen if they do invent some type of vaccine for this coronavirus and whatever else, right? It's going to cause this huge controversy. People are going to say, you're not getting the vaccine, you're going to kill everybody. And I can already see it, I'm just waiting to see if they develop something like this and to see how it rolls out. It's how it works. They control everything. You have to understand that. The world works in a certain way, but there are people who understand magic and they understand how to manipulate the world, and they control much of what is going on. Even the conspiracy groups, they control, they control people who aren't in the conspiracy groups. They control people who, they create things such as vaccines so people will argue about them, whether it's true or whether it's not. It doesn't even matter. They control both sides, they control it all. And, that's why I continually say you have to break the spell. And you have to be able to understand this and see this to fully grasp, to fully get out of the way that this world works. You have to understand that, these ideas and whatever that get pushed and get popular, even if they are in the conspiracy movement or, the truth community, whatever you want to call it, they're still being controlled. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. But anyway, I'm bringing this up because if you remember South Park episode 201, Oh, I didn't put Park in there, but whatever. South Park episode 201. This episode was the big censored one because they were going to show the Prophet Muhammad and so on. And this was also the same season that they had Captain Hindsight with the Coon, who's a playoff of Batman, right? You have to watch South Park, but, you know, they brought in Captain Hindsight, and now think about it. It's the year 2020. 2020 is hindsight. But if you look at this episode, it says that the episode wasn't played in most places. Instead, they played the episode Sexual Healing instead of episode 201. Well, Sexual Healing just so happens to be the only episode of South Park that Kobe Bryant's in, right? What are the odds of that? The only episode that Kobe Bryant is in is this episode that was played when episode 201 was supposed to play. And don't forget, just before the Paris attacks, the episode of South Park, list of South Park, I'll chime in here real quick. The episode of South Park just before the Paris attacks in November of 2015, it was called something Ninjas, and they all dressed up and they looked like they were from ISIS, right? What are the odds of that? They all looked like they were from ISIS. Then the creators of South Park also have, let me find it here, 2015. It's called Naughty Ninjas. It came out November 11th, so 2 days before the Paris attacks in 2015. They had this episode, and, you know, all the kids of the movie, they look like they were joining ISIS and whatnot. And then 2 days later, there was the ISIS attack in Paris, France. And the creators of the movie have this other movie called, or the show, have another movie called Team America World Police. In the very beginning of this movie, it opens up with a terrorist attack in France, right? And then it cuts over to this guy right here singing a Broadway musical called Everyone Has AIDS. And if you had followed what I was talking about back in that time, that was, there was another controversy with Kanye West and Paris and Taylor Swift at the VMAs, and it was synced up to Freddie Mercury, who had Bad Blood, and Taylor Swift had just came out with that song called Bad Blood, and Charlie Sheen, just after the Paris attacks, announced that he had HIV, right? And the word Charlie equaled 56, and 2.5 men equaled 56, and Charlie had tiger's blood, and at that time, the Missouri Tigers had started a hunger strike, and that hunger strike was over this, I don't know, I can't remember what happened, but they had the hunger strike, and remember Charlie Sheen had supposedly always said he had tiger's blood, right? So there was this big narrative with all of this stuff going on. Even one of the creators had I think Trey Parker maybe, had that gematria, his name equals 56, I think. And then it was also synced up to that episode where Magic Johnson has A's and Magic Johnson equals 56. And there was a number of other things. The Nebraska Cornhuskers were really synced up to it. And on the date of 9/1, we had the death of Dean Jones, the actor, in the movie called Herbie the Love Bug. What's up, buddy? But anyway, just after Dean Jones had died, he's famous for the movie Herbie the Love Bug, right? And the Nebraska Cornhusker mascot was Herbie. And Nebraska then, on 5 days later, they played BYU, the Mormon team, right? BYU. And this was the first time that Dwayne Wade had ever went to a Nebraska Cornhusker game with his wife Gabrielle Union, Abraham Lincoln, the Union, and so on. Lincoln, Nebraska. And I started following this pattern with the Mormons and how the Mormons were important. And, you know, that's why I'm telling you that the Zion, or Dwayne Wade's son named Zion, who wants to be a girl now, it's somehow important to this narrative. Nebraska was also synced up to Teen Wolf like crazy. Nebraska, if you watch the movie Teen Wolf, there's Nebraska Cornhusker stuff all over in the background of that movie. And the mascot of that movie was from the Oregon State Beavers. And Nebraska had just got the coach Mike Riley, who was known for coaching the Oregon State Beavers in Corvallis, Oregon. And Corvallis, Oregon was ranked #1 in the United States on the West Coast to raise a Mormon family, even if you look that up. But In the movie Teen Wolf, the mascot was based off of the Oregon State Beaver, like I said, where Mike Riley had previously coached. And I don't want to re-explain it all, it takes forever, but it was synced up to the NBA All-Star game that was synced up to Teen Wolf, and it fell over this festival of Lupercalia that was important to the she-wolf who suckled Romulus and Remus. And I'm bringing this up because that Missouri Tigers hunger strike, if they didn't play the next game, they weren't going to play against BYU. That was the Mormon team, right? BYU. They ended up playing them in Arrowhead Stadium where the Chiefs play, and I'll explain why that's important when I get to this part. But the Missouri Tigers president of the sports or whatever, his name was Tim Wolf, and he retired, and the word wolf equals 56. And so does Kevin Durant, or Kevin Garnett equals 56, and he was the original Teen Wolf. So does Michael J. Fox, and so does Scott Howard, his character in the movie Teen Wolf. Also, Kanye West was important to the Paris attacks, right? We even just recently had a story about Kanye West taking over some place so this transgendered person couldn't play there in France, and he's been really important to France forever. And Kanye equals 56, and Kim Kardashian equals 56, and at the time his kid was like Nori that equaled 56. There's a bunch of important stuff to the number 56, the Paris, France attacks, Paris, France 56, ISIS 56. So, moral of the story, I've just been following this date of 5-6 a whole lot. Also, another thing with Nebraska that year, and I know I'm getting off topic sort of, but Nebraska lost their game to Illinois because of the player named Geronimo Allison. Geronimo Allison. And what was interesting about him was that he also played for Iowa Western University before he went to Illinois. And Iowa Western is in Council Bluffs, Iowa, which is the famous starting point of the Mormon Trail. And they even have the Mormon Bridge in North Omaha and so on. So it was all synced up to that. And there's a big, long story. I'm not going to explain it, but that's part of the reason why I thought the Indians were going to be in the World Series the next year, and then the Indians ended up playing the Chicago Cubs in the World Series, which was also the same year that Donald Trump won the Riggs selection, and it was synced up to Prince Charles and the closest supermoon and a bunch of stuff. But remember, after they did the whole Black Panther tribute that next year at the Super Bowl, the Carolina Panthers versus the White Bronco, and then in August that year, Colin Kaepernick knelt, and that was a big controversy. If you look at that game, they were playing the Packers, and Geronimo Allison just so happened to be the leading receiver in that game. So the same game that Colin Kaepernick had first knelt. And the year before, the Teen Wolf stuff that was synced up to Nebraska and UCLA, Nebraska ended up having a terrible record, and they got a bowl game somehow with like a 5-7 record, and they played UCLA in the Foster Farms Bowl that was in Levi's Stadium, which is where Colin Kaepernick played too, right? He played in San Francisco at Levi's Stadium. Moses was in the tribe of Levi. Moses freed the slaves. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. I have mentioned all year how it was synced up to the Kansas City Chiefs and Alex Smith playing for Utah and Andy Reid being the Mormon. And I'm not going to lie, I made tons of videos. I thought the Chiefs were going to win that year because it was Super Bowl 50. And lo and behold, they go on to win the Super Bowl this year in the 50th modern era Super Bowl, and they won for the first time in 50 years, and Chiefs equal 50. Also, if you remember, just after the Paris, France attack in 2015, there was the Air France planes. Air France bomb threat. Let's type that out. See, there was Air France bomb threats, and it just so happened to divert one of the planes. It was Flight 65, and it had to land in Salt Lake City, right? Think about that, yet again, with the Mormons. So there's this big Mormon thing. And then Obama even went to France right after that, and they talked about global warming, or maybe it was climate change equals 56, and can't remember what it was. He was in Paris, France, when he was talking about climate change, and I can't remember, his speech lasted like 56 minutes I can't remember what it was. There was a bunch of 56 with it though. So I've been following this France narrative for a long time, and I've talked about how it's synced up to Pope Francis. So anyway, back on the topic here. So we got Event 201, And remember, like I said, Kobe Bryant, Donald Trump declared that the NBA suspended 201 days after Kobe Bryant's birthday on Anthony Davis's birthday. So I was just wondering, like, from event 201, if you went from event 201 to the date of May 6th, because it's synced up to coronavirus and 56 and whatever, event 201 to the date of 5/6 just so happens to be 201 days, right? What are the odds? Event 201, 201 days later, about a pandemic. This date can also be written as 6/5. In France, it's written as 6/5. And Melinda Gates was born on Napoleon's birthday. I mean, just look at this. So Melinda Gates' birthday is the same day as Napoleon. So the 227th day of the year. Notice she's going to be 56 years old this year. And also, look at her maiden name is. French. What are the odds of that? France, French. Going to be 56, born on the same day as Napoleon. Her birthday also was 65 days before Event 201. And in Event 201, they said it was going to kill 65 million people. And Bill Gates' birthday is on the day that leaves 65 days in the year. If you're out the word pandemic also equals 65. And I'm going to explain something about the Knights Templar here in a second, but notice that Pope Francis's full name, his real name, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, that also equals 201. Remember, Pope equals 56. He's the first Jesuit Pope. And Society of Jesus, which is the Jesuits, Society of Jesus equals 56. Pope, ISIS. It's this big number. France, IS. And think about how they call ISIS, IS, or ICE, or whatever, IS. France, IS. Super important. They also, what else is interesting about this with Pope Francis? For one, they've been syncing it up to Revelation like crazy. They've now changed the date of patient 0 to the date of December 1st, which is a lot like 121. And the first case in the United States was on January 21st, a lot like 121. And if you read out Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that equals 121. And if you read out World Health Organization, that equals 121. And remember, they said to get ready for a pandemic on the 56th day of the year and so on. But the first case in the United States is on 121 in Seattle, which is where Bill and Melinda Gates even are from, right? And the word Revelation equals 121. They've just been coding a lot of this to Revelation. Remember, like I said, Pope Francis's visit to the United States, it was really important to them blood moons, the fourth blood moon of the tetrad that happened right after he left Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is in the book of Revelation. And also, you know, Philadelphia is where Kobe Bryant was originally from. Kobe Bryant grew up in Italy, where the Pope is from. Now Italy is this big place with the coronavirus, and much, much more. But earlier I said that Pope Francis equals 227. Pope Francis equals 227 in these Francis Bacon ciphers. And it's also interesting because on the date of 227, we got a story about how Pope Francis got sick and he couldn't do anything, right? He couldn't do the masses or whatever, 227. It's pretty interesting that we'd get a story about Pope Francis on that day. But the big thing with Pope Francis that you know that it is connected to Pope Francis, Donald Trump then declared a national emergency for coronavirus on the date of 3/13. Which just so happens to be the anniversary of Pope Francis becoming the Pope. He became Pope on 3/13/13, just a month before Kobe Bryant tore his Achilles. If you go back and watch my Kobe Bryant video, it was all about Dwight Howard being on the team and the number 34. Then Kobe Bryant dies just after Dwight Howard turns 34 years old, just after he re-signed with the Lakers on Kobe Bryant's 41st birthday. The number 313 as well, 313. If you look it up in prime numbers, it's the 65th prime number. And once again, the word pandemic equals 65. 65 million people at event 201 and so on, right? 65 days after Melinda Gates' birthday. This also, the date of 3/13 this year, also just so happened to be Friday the 13th. And remember, the Paris attacks in 2015 happened on 11/13, which was also a Friday the 13th. If you write out Friday the 13th, it equals 223. And that year just so happened to be the 223rd year of the French Republic. 223. Also, once again, recall how Pope Francis's visit in 2015 was on 9/22, which was the 223rd anniversary of the French Republic being established. And then 52 days later was the Paris, France ISIS attack. And ISIS equals 52. The word Pope equals 52, government 52, and so on, right? And I'm also bringing this up because if you write out Napoleon's real name, Napoleon D. Bonaparte, it equals 223. And the date of 5/2 that year, or 2016, it just happened to be the 223rd day of the French Republic. Also, another thing I want to point out while I'm on this topic, because the word president also equals 52, and that same year, the 223rd year of the French Republic, that was when Donald Trump turned 70 years old. Let me pull up the Jewish gematria here. Donald Trump turned 70 years old, and that was just before King James, LeBron James, won the NBA Finals on the real King James's birthday. And then Donald Trump had his national convention in Quicken Loans Arena. That's in, where the Cavaliers play. A Cavalier is a follower of King Charles during the English Civil War. King Charles was the son of King James, and so on. But the reason I'm bringing this up is Donald Trump's 70th birthday on 6/14, which is also Flag Day. That just so happened to be Pope Francis's 1,189th day being the Pope. And if you know the King James Bible has 1,189 chapters, right? And if you write out Donald J. Trump, it just so happens to equal 1,189 in Jewish gematria. And the Golden State Warriors then went on to get Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant equals 1,189 in Jewish gematria. And I talked about how it was important to the key of David. Key of David equals 1,189. And the key of David is mentioned in the Church of Philadelphia in the book of Revelation. And once again, Kobe Bryant is important to this narrative with Philadelphia, Revelation. It's also why Pope Francis equals 404, and he arrived in America at 4:04 p.m. And it was the 404th year of the King James Bible, right? The King James Bible, some sources say that it was first released on the date of 5/2. And also if you read out Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, notice how it equals 1611, the same year that the King James Bible was written. Pope Francis finishes his trip in America, going to Philadelphia. Notice Philadelphia equals 65, like pandemic. That's also important to the date of 5/6. It also equals 223. This other date, or other number that I'm talking about, that's important to that year with France. Notice too that Philadelphia, in these Francis Bacon ciphers, it equals 201, right? Event 201. I also talked a lot about Louisiana equaling 201, and it's interesting, it's also 127 in these ciphers, and this year, 5/6 will be the 127th day of the year, but in Louisiana, yeah, it equals 142, just like coronavirus does. Coronavirus 142 as well. Coronavirus equals 70. That's why I was saying it was important to Donald Trump turning 70 years old that year. Don't forget, too, that Donald Trump went to Fordham University, which is a Jesuit university, and his national convention in Cleveland was 187 days before he became the president. And his birthday is 187 days before Pope Francis's birthday. Pope Francis, the first Jesuit pope. And if you write out Society of Jesus, it also equals 187. I think Freemasonry, can't remember what it is. Oh, it's Freemason equals 191, and these Francis Bacon ciphers, and Society of Jesus equals 191. So these Francis Bacon ciphers are super duper important. The NBA You notice how all the NBA players are getting coronavirus? It's like, I don't know one person that has coronavirus, but there's a, shit ton of celebrities and everything else that have coronavirus. And a ton of them are all in the NBA. Notice NBA equals 142, just like how coronavirus equals 142. Also notice how it was canceled after the Utah Jazz player got coronavirus. Utah Jazz. Notice it equals 155 like coronavirus. Also 224 like Kobe Bryant. Look at Kobe Bryant here. This is why they had Kobe Bryant's tribute or memorial on the date of 224. And this is why the episode of Chamberlain Heights, the cartoon that had Kobe Bryant dying in a helicopter crash, it came out 2 months and 24 days after Kobe Bryant's birthday. 224. It's also why, we just had the death of Conor McGregor's aunt, and then Floyd Mayweather's uncle and his ex-girlfriend had died. Floyd Mayweather equals 224. His birthday's 224. And Conor McGregor just won his first fight in forever. And now he has a record of 224. It's synced up to Kobe Bryant because Floyd Mayweather, his uncle, his nickname in boxing was the Black Mamba. Black Mamba. And that equals 59. That's the big number around black people and so on. Slave, Negro, Blues, Rasta, whatever, they all equal 59. But his uncle died 59 days after Conor McGregor's fight where he became 22-4. And remember, Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, and they had the big boxing match and whatever. But it's just like, ask yourself, what are the odds that his aunt dies, or Conor McGregor's aunt dies, and then two people in Floyd Mayweather's life die just after Kobe Bryant, and it's all synced up to the number 224. His uncle has the same nickname as Kobe Bryant, the Black Mamba. I mean, I don't know how people can't understand it and catch on. Even this Conor McGregor story is connected to France because Conor McGregor just so happens to be born on July 14th, which is the anniversary of the storming of the Bastille, that in 2016, it was the Nice, France van attack that was on the 227th anniversary, right? So Conor McGregor's born in this. That's why Floyd Mayweather's uncle died on St. Patrick's Day, right? The Irish holiday. Conor McGregor from Ireland as well. But, I can't remember what I was going to show in here. I thought it was interesting. The Nice, France van attack on Conor McGregor's birthday, it was 70 days before the 224th anniversary of the French Republic, right? 224. And remember, coronavirus equals 70. So does Paris, France. So the storming of the Bastille happened on the 70th day of the French Revolution. Coronavirus equals 70. To 12/1, the day that they say the new patient zero was after the French Republic, was the 70th day of the French Republic. That Nice, France van attack was also synced up to Donald Trump and the Miss Universe pageant, and in Las Vegas, and in December of 2015, we had the lady who mowed down people on the street during the Miss Universe pageant, and she drove and then she stopped at the Paris intersection, and then she kept on running people over. Then we had the Nice, France van attack, reminding us of that same thing. But so in this post I wrote that if you write out 201 as words, it equals 244, and it's in the Francis Bacon cipher. So I'll just type it out here. 201. Think about event 201. It equals 244. And if you write out Nice, France, that also equals 244. And that's interesting because we're coming up on the 244th year of the Illuminati and also the 244th year of the United States on July 4th. So it's pretty interesting. They also emphasized that he said stupid coronavirus that killed his aunt, even though it didn't really kill his aunt. It wasn't coronavirus, but that equals 224. And that Nice, France van attack was connected to Sylvester Stallone. He was there when that happened, and the media gave us a story of and it had a picture of him, and it looked like there was fireworks going off behind him, and it looked like he was the Statue of Liberty. So there's something important to that as well with Philadelphia and Rocky. And remember when Floyd Mayweather defeated Conor McGregor in the boxing fight, he became 50-0, and he surpassed Rocky Marciano's 49-0 record. So definitely synced up to that. Remember, Trump also wanted to box Putin, and there's some interesting things here. Then Trump earlier this year on Thanksgiving, he put a picture of himself where he looked like Rocky, right, on Rocky's body. So this narrative that I've been talking about for years, it's definitely still going on. But the number 244 is also interesting. Let's get on to this Mormon connection then. So it's super interesting here. We got this Mormon, there was an earthquake on 3/18 in Utah, then it damaged this Mormon statue of the angel Moroni, and the trumpet fell. And we've been talking about this forever. Donald Trump in Revelation, the Trump-Pence ticket sounds a lot like the trumpets of Revelation. But notice if you write out, Salt Lake City, Utah? Let me find it here. Salt Lake City, Utah equals 244. So we got the upcoming 244th year of the United States and the Illuminati. Let's type it out for you. Salt Lake City, Utah. 244. And if you write out Moroni, the angel, or angel Moroni, how they had it, equals 244. So it's definitely synced up, because if you go back to all my information I was talking about in 2015 about the Book of Mormon, I had talked about how it was important to the date of Pope Francis's visit, and how the Book of Mormon has 239 chapters in it. 239. It was the 239th year of the United States. And in the history of the Mormon religion, Joseph Smith, he wasn't allowed to take the golden plates until the date of 9/22 of 1827. The angel Moroni told him he could take the plates on 9/22/1827. Interesting, that's the anniversary of the French Republic. That's also the day that Pope Francis visited the United States in 2015. And 2015 on this date, it just so happened to be the 188th anniversary of Joseph Smith being allowed to take the plates, right? And if you write out Latter-day Saints, it equals 188. Also, if you write out Salt Lake City, Utah, it also equals 188. Also, Bavarian Illuminati equals 188. And think about how it was the 239th year of the Illuminati as well. Joseph Smith even died 188 days after his birthday. And notice how the story of the earthquake on March 18th, it just so happened to be 188 days before 9/22. 188 days. Also 6 months and 4 days, which is interesting considering Zion equals 64. And the NBA Finals were supposed to begin on the date of 6/4. Israel equals 64. It's also interesting to think about that Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Bavarian Illuminati, this guy right here, notice he died in the year 1830, November 18th, 1830. And in that same year was also the Second French Revolution. And this same year on April 6th was the day that the Church of Mormon was established, Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, right? And if you read out, I can't think of what it is, the whole phrase, Jesus Christ, let me find it. I know I wrote it in here somewhere. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I forgot the T there, but that equals 227, the number important to France and so on. 227. The story was also two months and 27 days before Donald Trump's birthday. Also 88 days. 227 and 88. Trump equals 88. The word Mormon equals 88. The Nauvoo, Illinois, where Brigham Young led the people to Utah and whatnot. Nauvoo equals 88. So it's definitely interesting. It's also interesting, too, way back when I was talking about how all of this was synced up to the area that I live in, because the Omaha Native Americans were the ones who brought the Mormons to Council Bluffs, Iowa, where the Mormon Trail began and so on. And they brought them there by an illegal treaty from Big Elk. And the town that I live in killed the last keeper of the sacred pole named Chief Yellow Smoke of the Omaha people and so on. That's also why Brandon Scherf he's a Washington Redskin now, because it's all synced up to this Native American theme. That's why Alex Smith of the Kansas City Chiefs went on to be a Washington Redskin. But Mike Pence, who's in charge of the coronavirus, and his name also equals the same as coronavirus, 155, just like coronavirus. He's from Indiana, which is the land of the Indian. And this was important because in the Mormon religion, there was the two groups, the Nephites and the Lamanites, right? And maybe I'm not pronouncing that right, but the Lamanites were the ones who went away from God and then their skin turned dark. And historically, the Mormons believe that they're ancestors of the Native Americans that we know today. So basically, they're the Native Americans that we know today. The Lamanites, it's all about to do with the Mormon religion. There was just so much going on that year. And, I talked about that there was this big, major Native American theme. Even the Chief David Bald Eagle from the movie Dances with Wolves had died. And it was synced up to Kevin Costner in the film Field of Dreams. And then James Earl Jones's wife died. And then the guy who wrote Shoeless Joe had died. And then the Indians ended up being in the World Series. And I also talked about the Simpsons episode where they predict Donald Trump to be the president before the first woman president. And they do that when Bart goes to the Indian casino. Then the Indians lost in the World Series. They hadn't been there for the first time since the year 48. And, of course, Donald Trump equals 48. The word wall equals 48. He won the rigged selection on the anniversary of the Berlin Wall coming down. We're the closest supermoon since the year 48. And that's important to this narrative too, but I don't want to lose you. There's just so much information, but, it's all synced up to this Native American theme, the Mormons' religion at least is. And to further what I'm saying, I absolutely know that it is synced up to the Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. If you go back, when I documented about how Larry Johnson, the ex-Kansas City Chiefs player, how he started sharing gematria on the date of 10/18, which is also the same day as Event 201 when they had the Military World Games in Wuhan, China, and so on, right? 10/18. And he did it like 31 days before his birthday. He was 32, but Chiefs equal 31 and Chiefs also equal 32. And I talked about how I thought it was synced up to the Kansas City Chiefs and all the Mormon stuff I had talked about in 2015. And then like a couple weeks later, one of the major stories in the mainstream news was how this Mormon family got killed at the Mexican border, right? So I knew even more that it was synced up to the Kansas City Chiefs, but what are the odds that Larry Johnson's name equals 155, just like coronavirus, and then he starts sharing gematria the same day as Event 201? Doesn't that seem a little weird? And Joseph Smith also equals like almost identical to coronavirus. And the word Moroni equals 155, just like coronavirus. So it's definitely synced up to that as well. And even more so with the Chiefs. So for real, I have like a whole playlist on Alex Smith and the Chiefs and the Mormons. And it was all about the number 31. And back then I didn't even know reverse gematria. I didn't know that Chiefs equal 31. But Alex Smith, after the Chiefs had lost and got knocked out of the playoffs, he stayed on 31 wins and whatnot. I thought he was going to get 32 before the Super Bowl because at the time I didn't know reverse gematria and Chiefs equal 31 and also 32. And everything with Alex Smith was about the number 11. Like he was drafted in the number. I think, did he wear the number 11, drafted in the year 11? They said he was the 11th smartest player in the NFL. All kinds of stuff. The Utah Utes, their coach was like in his 11th season or something. Don't quote me on this, but it was all about the number 11, and the 11th prime number is 31. And it's funny, looking back on it now that I know the reverse gematria, Chiefs equal 31, it makes a lot more sense. But Anyway, Alex Smith had played at Utah, and Andy Reid was the Mormon, and Andy Reid had this big connection to Philadelphia and so on. But Independence, Missouri is where Joseph Smith wanted to establish the New Jerusalem for the Mormon religion, right? New Jerusalem or Zion. And think about all this. I've been talking about this for all last year and how it synced up to the date of August 10th and August 11th, which was when Tisha B'Av fell, and it was synced up to the Philadelphia building called the Comcast Center with the black cube on the top of it. The black cube supposedly represents the New Jerusalem, which is where the third temple will be built. And there's even been articles about how the only way to stop the coronavirus is to build the third temple. And, that's why the San Francisco was so important, because the Golden Gate is where the Messiah will return through. And Golden Gate equals 239 in Jewish gematria, reminding us of the 52nd prime number. That's why the Eagles won Super Bowl 52. It was synced up to Pope Francis's visit and Donald Trump calling out the NFL on the date of 23/9, and how the flag was sewn at 239 Arch Street and Trump born on Flag Day. Just this big narrative that I've been following for a really long time. But Independence, Missouri is where they wanted to establish the New Jerusalem. Independence, Missouri just so happens to be in Jackson County, Missouri, which is where the Kansas City Chiefs play. Arrowhead Stadium is in Jackson County, Missouri. Independence is part of Kansas City. Look at Andy Reid's name in the Francis Bacon ciphers. Andy Reid, 188. And once again, think about the Chiefs in regards to the Lamanites, right, who turned away from God and they became the Native Americans. And the Chiefs' Super Bowl just makes me wonder. They won the Super Bowl 1 month and 16 days before this earthquake. And I've been talking a lot about the Indians and the Chiefs, and, the number 116 has been this number I've talked about for a long time, connected to the Native American theme. And it just makes me wonder about the Indians and the World Series this year, if there even is a World Series or whatever's going on with it. Because the word Indians equals 70, like coronavirus. Coronavirus also equals 155, and the 155th day is normally 6'4", but this year it's 6'3". If you write out Native American, it equals 63. If you write out Native Americans, it equals 64. The word Zion equals 64. The NBA that's important to Zion Williamson was supposed to begin on 6'4". David Stern also died this year. Remember David Stern? Look him up. His birthday was 9/22, the anniversary of the French Republic. But the 1 month and 16, it just reminds me of the lost 116 pages in the Book of Mormon as well. So the lost or stolen. Joseph Smith gave this guy Martin Harris, and then they got lost. So just trying to piece all this together. It's definitely connected to everything I've talked about for over the years. Even the date of 3/18 is important. 3/18. I have countless videos from 2017 where I talked about how this was the God number, and there's a TV show called Touch, where this kid can see the numeric code of the world, and the God number begins with 318 and ends with 318. And there's 318 mentions of the return of Jesus in the New Testament, and the only time the number 318 is mentioned is when they're talking about going to the town of Dan. And that year I was talking all about the angel Gabriel and how he only talked to Daniel, Zechariah, and Mary. And I was talking about how it was synced up to me and Zach Hubbard and a ton of other stuff. This lady named Mary had called in to the Gematria Effect, like right after I started talking about this. And I don't want to re-explain that, but that was all synced up to Tisha B'Av last year as well. Think about how this is synced up to the Bavarian Illuminati as well, right? It's really important to the Illuminati and Adam Weishaupt, who was a Jesuit. Now I get the first Jesuit Pope. And, Joseph Smith was a Freemason, even on this temple where the angel Moroni is. They got the all-seeing eye, and they got the Masonic handshake. There's all kinds of Freemason symbolism within this deal. So Super interesting. Plus, on top of that, Joseph Smith equals 52, which is, the 52nd prime is 239. Latter-day Saint equals 52. He took the plates on 922. The Paris, France attack was also synced up to the Knights Templar. I think I was going to mention that earlier in the video, but Knights Templar equals 65. And the guy who burned him at the stake, his name equaled 56. And, their demise was in France. And it was on Friday the 13th. Think about how the coronavirus was declared a national emergency on Friday the 13th, how the Paris attacks were on Friday the 13th, and this earthquake that happened on 3/18, it just so happens to be the day that the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, Jacques de Molay, whose name equals 52, that's when he was supposedly killed as well. 52, and his name also equals 227, so there's something definitely synced up to all that, how it all syncs together. The Knights Templar, the Society of Jesus, the Illuminati, Freemasonry, talked about how it's all synced up to magic before. I'm just going to end the video here, though. I can hear my kids screaming and stuff, and better go take care of him. But I don't want to stop it because it's at 56 minutes in the video. So I'm just going to keep talking for like a minute to make it not be 56 minutes. A lot of people, a lot of the things that I want to talk about too, I get so far behind on these videos though, like a lot of the things that how I figure this out, I'm telling you, it's all from synchronicity and stuff. So like literally I wrote about Buzz Lightyear, how I had synchronicity with Buzz Lightyear in the movie Toy Story, and how it was synced up to George Clooney, and he's Batman, which is important to all the South Park stuff. And remember, South Park 2 has the episode called All About the Mormons, and then they had the Broadway musical, The Book of Mormon, and that movie Orgasmo that starts off where, where the Mormons and whatnot. And a lot of this is synced up to the moon. The 201, the moon landing was on, and the Batman shooting were both on July 20th, which is the 201st day of the year. And just before Kobe turned 34 years old, the season that he tore his Achilles, we also had the death of Neil Armstrong right after the Batman shooting, right? And Aurora. And in the movie theater, they showed the preview of the movie Skyfall, and they showed Aurora on the building in China. And then Aurora, Colorado got shot up. But that was on the 201st day of the year. Neil Armstrong's full name equals 201. Apollo equals 201. Buzz Aldrin's birthday is January 20th, 20/1. So I wonder if we're going to get the death of one of the astronauts that walked on the moon or something again. I said that a few years back in 2017 when I was first started talking about all the Houston rockets and this big space narrative and whatever else. And then we had the death of Alan Bean, one of the guys who walked on the moon, less than a month later. And it was synced up to the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, and then the Eagle landed on the player named James Paxton in Minneapolis where the Super Bowl was held. And that Eagle's name was Challenger. Challenger and the Eagle both landed on the moon, the lunar modules. We had Stoneman Douglas Eagles get shot up, synced up to the Falcon Heavy launch. The Falcons had won the Super Bowl the year before, or been in the Super Bowl the year before. So there's definitely something important to that. Neil Armstrong dying just after the Batman shooting. John Glenn had died just after I mentioned how Eugene Cernan and Neil Armstrong were important to some space theme right after Donald Trump had won the election. And John Glenn had died 175 days before the NBA Finals, and Houston Rockets equaled 175, but so did Golden State, so did Pope Francis. Charles Duke, one of the guys to walk on the moon, he was the youngest, and he did it 201 days after his birthday. So possibly watch out for him. George Clooney, born on 5/6, Buzz Aldrin's name equals 56. And it's funny because I mentioned Tom Hanks in this blog post, and it was at 12:39 a.m., so 12:39 in the morning, and I wondered if there's something important to maybe Tom Hanks with all this, and Tom Hanks is in the movie Philadelphia as well. I didn't put that in here, and Philadelphia has just been important to all of it all together with Revelation and the Comcast Center in the New Jerusalem. And we had was it Bill Paxton, the guy in Apollo 13 as well. He died just before the Eagle landed on the baseball player named James Paxton. So I just wondered if there's something important to Tom Hanks. And then later that day, it was announced Tom Hanks had the coronavirus, the guy that's also in the movie Sleepless in Seattle, where the coronavirus began. Oh, I forgot to mention in this video that Bill Gates also announced his retirement, or he stepped down. Where did I put that? But Bill Gates stepped down from Microsoft and Berkshire Hathaway on the same day that Donald Trump declared the coronavirus a national emergency, right? The same day as Pope Francis's anniversary. Bill Gates stepped down from Berkshire Hathaway and also from Microsoft on the boards or whatever. And the interesting thing about that is, remember when the coronavirus first started kind of in the United States, in Seattle, but then they had the Diamond Princess cruise ship, and they sent everybody to the University of Nebraska Medical Center, which reminds us of Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway. Nebraska Medical Center, that equals 201, right? So it was interesting too, because I was talking about Houston a lot, and my aunt who has cancer, and she keeps going back to this hospital. Her name is Lorraine Houston is how it's pronounced, but it looks like Houston, and her name equals 201. So her son is on tour, or was on tour, with Maroon 5. Let me type this out really quick. Maroon 5. And I had this crazy experience with him, and it was synced up to the movie The Happening. And yeah, I'm going to quit rambling because I really do have to go downstairs. But he was on tour with Maroon 5, and then like the next day after I saw him, he left to go to like Argentina. And then Maroon 5 was in the mainstream media for having a bad concert in Argentina or whatever, and it was something to do with their monitors weren't working. And my cousin's the guy who runs the monitors. So I was like, that's freaking interesting, But if I ever get time, or you come read my blog posts, I mean, I'm telling you, I talk about synchronicity a lot. Synchronicity is, if you're not talking about synchronicity as well, then you're missing part of it, because we always talk about how the band The Police has the song called Murder by Numbers, but it's on that album called Synchronicity. So synchronicity is a very big piece to how all of this works and whatnot. And that's why I cover it so much, because I know that it's important. And I see how these things in my own life are synced up to the way these things go on, even though I truly know that there are people who understand this knowledge and people who know how to manipulate it and so on. Too many experiences and whatever else that I know that somehow people understand this knowledge and somehow are using it to, rule over the world with it. But also every single day these things happen, and, if you change one thing, it's going to change other things, and everything is related, no matter if you change anything. So I'll just leave it at that. But, there's one last thing. My grandpa also died, and back in 2017, I predicted that maybe he would die when my dad was 63 years old, and he dies just a month shy of my dad turning 63 years old. But he died on the 70th day of the year, like coronavirus. It was also the date of 310, this big number I've talked about big time for the last year or so. And I just wonder, because they held off his funeral until Wednesday this week, even though he died last Tuesday, I think it was, March 10th, whatever that is. But, his funeral was crazy. Nobody could even go. There's only 10 people allowed in the church, and like 10 people allowed into the parish hall where his wake was and all that. But I just wonder, because they held off a bit because my uncle's from Seattle, where the coronavirus is from. And, I have one of my biggest memories with my grandpa is the trip that I took to Seattle back, I don't even remember what year it was, probably 2002. I wish I could remember, because it's probably connected and important, but, I just remember, I just feel like there's something important to him dying on that day, 70th day of the year. But There's some other stuff that I could talk about it, but like I said, I have to go. Have a good one. Peace out.